What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 13 of the Real GP series. This week we're going to be checking out the comparison between the original Nechryael and the old school exclusive Greater Nechryaels. Thanks everyone for coming back to check out the next video in the Real GP series. I really appreciate all the great feedback, comments, and likes everyone has given me. This week we'll be checking out the comparison between the Greater Nechryaels and the normal Nechryaels, and no, I will not be bursting or barraging them because that is very expensive and it is definitely not as profitable as melee. Definitely faster for training mage or knocking out a slayer task, but the profits will suffer. If you haven't done so yet, check out my Twitter and Instagram. If you get some awesome drops, PKs, clues, or whatever, make sure you send them to me so I can post them up so you get the recognition you deserve. I mean, we all deserve recognition every now and then, right? You can also come and hang out in my clan chat. Just the other day, there was a new hive, 75 people in there at once. There were multiple boss groups out having a good time, as well as the normal conversation. And last, if you need somewhere to hang out with voice comms, please feel free to use my Discord. All of the information you'll need for any of this is in the description below. Alright, so let's get going with this week's content. I've personally always wondered how good the loot is when comparing the Greater Nechryaels to their weaker counterparts. I'm sure some of you have too, so here we are. The normal Nechryaels are one of the original Slayer monsters from when the skill was first released. Since then, they've received a drop table buff, but not so recently, but I guess when you consider how old OSRS is, it still is kinda recent. It's made them much more profitable to camp or kill, so I wanted to find out just how much more. The Greater Nechryaels are a somewhat newer addition to old school RuneScape, having been introduced not that long ago when the Catacombs of Koren were released. Normal Nechryaels can only be found in one location. This location is the Slayer Tower near Canifis. In order to get here, you can either use the Canifis Fairy Ring, or if you have 75 crafting and can make your own Slayer Rings, use the Slayer Ring teleport, which will put you just inside the front door. Once inside the tower, you'll want to travel up to the northeast corner of the third floor, US floor that is, I guess second if you're in the UK. Additionally, if you're on a Slayer task, Nechryaels are also located in the basement of the Slayer Tower, which is for people who are only on a Slayer task. As for the Greater Nechryaels, they are also only found in one location, which is the Catacombs of Koren. You can use the Koren teleport to get to the monument, investigate the monument, then head north, then east, and you'll find them just past the mutated Bloodvelds. As we get into the background information, we'll go over the normal Nechryaels first. The normal Nechryaels boast a combat level of 115, a hit points level of 105, and a maximum hit of 11. They only use melee to attack, but they will also spawn death spawns while you're fighting them. You do not have to kill the death spawns in order to kill the Nechryael, you can just ignore them and continue on your merry way of death and destruction. The Nechryael's weakness is actually going to be the Arclight. Although it doesn't say demon anywhere in their name, Nechryaels are actually a part of the NPC demon class. So if you got charges to blow, I definitely suggest using the Arclight here. The Nechryaels have an attack and strength level of 97, defense level of 105, and a magic and range level of 1. Their defensive stats are plus 20 to all styles excluding magic, meaning you can use whatever the best weapon you have available is. If you don't have an Arclight or you don't want to use the charges, I just suggest using an Abyssal Whip here. As for the drops, I mentioned earlier that their drop table was buffed in the past, so we'll take a look at that now. Nechryaels and Greater Nechryaels both share one common drop, which is the Rune Boots. This has a drop rate of 1 in 128, and although they're not worth what they once were, it's still a nice 7.5k in the bank. Don't forget, everything stacks up over time. As for some of the notable drops you'll want to keep an eye out for, they drop a decent amount of Rune Two-Handed Swords and Rune Full Helms. Law Runes and Chaos Runes are very common. Snapdragon Seeds are considered rare, but you should find yourself getting a decent amount of them. Torstal Seeds, not so much, but they are there. And lastly, the Nechryaels drop a decent amount of coins, as well as noted Limpwort Roots and Soft Clay. If you'd like to see a complete list of the Nechryaels drop table, check out the description below. Next, we'll move on to the Greater Nechryaels. The Greater Nechryaels boast a combat level of 200 and an accompanying hit points level of 205. They are not aggressive, and their max hit is 21. Just like the normal Nechryaels, they will spawn death spawns as well, but you can still ignore them. The fantastic thing about the Greater Nechryaels is that they're extremely AFK if you're meleeing. Their location is a multi-combat zone, meaning you can just stack them up, leave auto-retaliate on, and go to town. The Greater Nechryaels have an attack and strength level of 197, defense level of 85, and a magic and range level of 1. Now, although their defense level is lower than the normal Nechryaels, their increase in HP makes for longer kill times. Their defensive stats are all the same at plus 50, with the exception of magic, so once again, if you don't have an Arclight or you don't want to use the charges, use an Abyssal Whip, it will do just fine here. As for the drops, the table is a bit larger. Once again, you'll have a 1 in 128 chance of grabbing some rune boots. You'll also want to keep an eye out for alkables. Everything that doesn't stack up here is pretty much worth alking. There are herbs on this NPC's drop table, but you won't see very many of the good ones. I'd really only suggest picking up the renars. Unlike the normal Nechryaels, Snapdragon and Torstal seeds are a bit less common, making their rare drop status a little more concrete. And lastly, they do drop 10,000 coins, but this is not very common to see. Unlike the normal Nechryaels, the cash drops here are not nearly as good. If you'd like to see a complete list of the greater Nechryaels drops, once again, please check out the description below. Moving on, we'll jump into the gear setups now. For the normal Nechryaels, your best melee gear will do. As for me, I'll be going with the Helm of Nitsnot, Fire Cape, Amulet of Torture, Bandos Chestplate and Tassets, Barrow's Gloves, Primordial Boots, and a Berserker's Ring Eye. My weapon of choice will be the Arclight and Dragon Defender. I chose to go with the Arclight here because in these videos I try to find out the maximum you can possibly make killing an NPC, so obviously I went with the best weapon of choice. In my inventory, you'll see 2 supersets, a Saradomin Godsword, 3 Sharks, a Smoke Battlestaff, Nature Runes, a Slayer Ring, Rune Pouch, and some House Teleports. If you don't have a Saradomin Godsword, the Guthun's Armor set will absolutely do just fine here. I just choose the SGS because I have one, so why not use it? Similar to some other NPCs in the game, Nechryaels are an NPC that you can slay for an indefinite amount of time, providing you have supplies. Some drop stack, and the rest can be alked. The Rune Pouch probably isn't necessary, so don't sweat it if you don't have it, but it will conserve a few inventory spaces so you don't have to alk as often. As for this video, I didn't actually alk anything. I always save all the drops to see how many of what can be obtained in the 25 hours. Now we'll move on to the greater Nechryael setup. For these, it is absolutely necessary to protect from melee at all times. They will hit quite often and pretty high. For these, I'll be going with the Helm of Nitsnot, Fire Cape, Amulet of Torture, Unholy Blessing, Proselyte Plate and Legs, Barrow's Gloves, Primordial Boots, Berserker Ring Eye, and my weapon of choice will once again be the Arclight and Dragon Defender. As for the inventory, I'll be going with a superset, 10 Prayer Potions, Nature Runes, and a Smoke Battlestaff for high alchemy, a Rune Pouch, some House Teleports. The greater Nechryaels do drop quite a few different types of runes, so the Rune Pouch is definitely helpful here. You'll want to keep that inventory space open for more alkables. This setup is very self-explanatory and very straightforward. Pray melee, kill stuff, and alk stuff. Easy as pie. So now we've come to the fun part of the video, the loot. On the left side of the screen, you will see the loot and value of the normal Nechryaels, and on the right side, you'll see the loot and value of the greater Nechryaels. Normally, I do 25 hours of each NPC, but for comparisons, I split them up into 12.5 hours each. So we will go ahead and start off with the normal Nechryaels. Over the 12.5 hours for normal Nechryaels, I ended up killing 1,832, giving me an average of about 147 kills per hour. I ended up with 7,988,691 GP in total loot. As for the supplies, the cost is pretty much non-existent when you compare it to the loot value. I only ended up using 19 supersets and about 30 sharks, give or take a few. This gave me a supply cost of 67,405 GP. Subtracting this from the total value leaves me with 7,921,286 GP of pure profit. We will round this to 7.92 mil, and I am left with a profit per hour of 633k. So now let's see how this stacks up against their greater counterpart. As for the graders, my total loot value came out to only be 5,408,276 GP, significantly less than the normal Nechryaels. As for supplies, because you have to use prayer potions here, it sets the supply cost way higher than the normal Nechryaels supply cost. My supplies ended up costing me 525,310 GP, which left me with a profit of 4,882,966 GP. After 12.5 hours, I am left with a profit per hour of only 390k. For an NPC much stronger than its lesser self, the profit per hour is much worse. So, as for my final thoughts, I was actually very surprised to see how much you can actually make at the normal Nechryaels. I previously did a video on the greater Nechryaels, but didn't calculate the actual profit into it, but I still sort of knew it was coming. But it is still nice to see them side by side on screen. So as for which ones you should kill, if you're looking for more cash out of your Slayer tasks, you'll definitely want to take on the original Nechryaels. If you're looking for experience efficiency, you'll want to burst or barrage the greater Nechryaels, as they are located in a multi-combat zone and tasks can take as little as 30 minutes depending on your gear and magic level. Additionally, if you're looking for somewhere to camp for cash, the normal Nechryaels isn't looking like too bad of a spot. Hell, if I got cleaned at the arena, I would definitely consider AFKing here for a while to build a bank back up. But that is going to do it, everyone. Episode 13 of the Real GP series is coming to an end, and we only have 5 more episodes to go before the series finale. And boy, do I have a treat for you guys. So, if you like this video, please leave a like down below. They really help the video spread around. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below as well. I always try to get to every single one that I can. If you haven't already, don't forget to tap that subscribe button on your way out. I will see you all next week. Take it easy, everybody.